Terumot Perek Daled Mishnah Vav. Okay, this Mishnah discusses the idea of measurements and measuring produce that you're going to take truma off of. So in order to understand this Mishnah, the first thing we have to look back in is Perek Aleph Mishnah Zayin. So let's go back to Perek Aleph Mishnah Zayin. It says the Mishnah. Remember we learned, Ein tarmin lo b'midah v'lo b'mishkal v'lo b'minyan. You're not allowed to measure when you take truma. Neither a midah, a measurement, or mishkal, or weight, or minyan, or count. Okay? So the amount, or the weight, or the count. Okay? Aval toremu et hamadud ve'et hashakul ve'et hamane. But you can take truma for something that is already measured, or weighed, or counted. So the truma itself, you're not allowed to count. But you can count that which is being measured from. So let's go back to our Mishnah, Perek Daled Mishnah Vav. Says the Mishnah the following. So in light of that Mishnah, we're going to have to understand our Mishnah. So the Mishnah says the following. Bishlosha prakim misharim et al kalkala. At 3 points would they would measure the kalkala, the basket. So they would have a basket in which they would collect all of the produce. So in order to know how much trumot and maasor to give, they would have a measurement. They would know that this basket holds a certain amount of whatever. Okay? So let's look at so the Mishnah says the following. When was the 3 times? Babakurot, ubeseyafot, ubeemtza hakayitz. Let's translate. Let's look at the Bartanura. Babakurot, bisman shaperot bibechorehen. When the fruits were clearly picked at different times. Every harvest has different harvest times. So there were initial harvests, there were the first fruits, then there were the later fruits, and finally there was like the leftovers. So he says they would measure each time they would do a picking. So every time they would do a picking, they would first measure how many fruits of this picking does the basket hold. So the Bechurot, Bizman Shaperot Bibikurehen, Hin Bimiluyan. When they're Bibikurehen, when they're the first fruits, they're full. So the early fruits are plumper, are riper, are more beautiful. So obviously the basket will hold less. Okay? The second one is ubesayafot. Besayafot is the later ripening fruits, besayafot. Okay? And then the basket holds a lot. And then besayafot, i.e. perot shubesof hakayitz, ubeemsa hakayitz. He says they are mevushalot, they are ripe. Ve'ena, where are we? I lost my place. Oh, I'm sorry, I lost my place. Ve'ena mitzumakot, and they're not like timukim, dried out. Hakakala mechazeket mina perot yoter mimash merazek mehem kshem mevukarot. So in the middle, the emsa, the basket can contain more fruits than in the original because they're smaller. But it can hold in the middle of the summer less than it holds in the end of the kites. So in the end, what we're talking about is measuring the fruits, measuring the basket in which the fruits will be held, okay, for the measurement of what? That's the question. Okay, so you're using this basket as a measuring basket for the fruits that will be used for that are going to be collected during the harvest. The question is, what are we measuring for? Because if you recall, in the Mishnah that we learned, the Mishnah said, in the Mishnah that we learned, Perek Aleph, Mishnah Zayin, we said, and to say it again, okay, Ein tarmin lo b'midah, lo b'mishkal, lo b'minyan. You're not allowed to take measure, you're not allowed to measure truma. Aval tarim tu madud. So now the Kahati, based on certain explanations, says we're talking in the simple pshat, even in this Mishnah, we're talking about truma itself. We're talking about measuring the basket. Remember he said aval tormin. Okay, we can't ein tormin. You got to say the Mishnah again, okay, because it's worth seeing again. Perek Aleph Mishnah Zayin. It says the following: ein tormin lo b'midah. You can't measure neither in quantity or mishkal or weight or minyan. Aval torim et hamadud vet hashakul vet hamanui. So here, what are we doing? So according to the simple explanation in Perek Daled, what you're saying is you're not measuring the actual. You're not measuring let me find my place so it's not distracting. Okay? You're not measuring in the basket. If I measure the basket, I'm not measuring the fruits that I'm going to take out from truma. What I'm doing is I'm measuring the madud. I'm measuring the produce itself, which the Mishnah says you're allowed to. Tarim et hamadud. So therefore now, if I know in the original harvest, in the first harvest, it can hold 50 plump dates. So therefore, I really know I need to take 1 date. For every basket, I need to take 1 date. Okay, in the middle it says it holds 100, and then the end it holds 200 dates because they're tiny, dried up dates. So in each one, then I know how much to take. She says that's the explanation of the Bartanura, of the Kahati. That's a simple explanation, and he says that's based on the Tiferet Yisrael. That's the simple explanation. The Bartanura does not agree at all. He says this Mishnah is not, and by the way, and the explanation of the Kahati is simple because here we're talking about Truma, so this Mishnah is talking about Truma. The Bartanura doesn't like it at all. And it makes sense because it's one thing if I measure the basket and the basket holds 100, so I take off 2. When I take off 2, I'm measuring. That's a measurement. That's a number. So he says this is for the following. Asal kakala is the sal shemodidin la'afrisha ma'asrot u'trumat ma'aser. It's not talking about truma. It's talking about ma'asrot and trumat ma'aser. She'ein ma'afrishin otan ela b'midah u'b'midana b'mishkal. Okay? Those must be taken b'midah u'b'midan u'b'mishkal. Aval truma gedola ein mafrishin ota ela me'omed. But truma has to be taken approximately, as we learned in Perek Aleph, Mishnah Zayin. Okay, so therefore, in this basket, according to the Bartanura, is only for ma'asrot or trumat ma'aser. It's not for truma at all. If that's true, then in any case, the Mishnah continues. Hamoneh, of the 3 measuring matter or measuring processes, which is better? Hamoneh mishubach. Counting is mishubach, is praiseworthy. Okay, if you're counting the ones in the basket, that's a nice way. Okay, hamoded mishubach mimenu. If you measure, okay, and they're go by volume, that's better. Hashokel mishubach mishloshtam. And if you weigh them, okay, that's even more praiseworthy. That's the most praiseworthy way to do it based on weight. Again, he says dafka b'ma'asrot u'chumat ma'aser. That's a Bartanura's explanation that this whole Mishnah is kind of a non sequitur. That the basket here is not talking about a basket of Truma, but talking instead about a basket of Maaser. Stop here if you have any comments or questions. You can email me at my email basket at rspolter@gmail.com. And we're dedicated learning to the memory of my father, Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. Have a great day.